Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tripwire Interactive Community Report, or as we like to call it, the TICR for short. Now, my name's Jared Creasy, the Community Manager with Tripwire Interactive, and my goal here today is to tell you everything about what we're working on here at Tripwire Studios, along with our awesome partners as part of our publishing arm, Tripwire Presents. So, let's get started and dive right into the land of Zeds with Killing Floor 2. We've just released the Infernal Insurrection update in the past few days. Players will be going forth to Hellmark Station and checking out some great quality of life updates and content as they fight the creepies and the crawlies that are pouring forth from this location. Keep an eye out for some obelisks of power though, they might be able to help you on your way for a price. Mercs will be heading into the field with some great new additions to their arsenal. 2 new HRG weapons and 2 new DLC weapons. The HRG Scorcher allows the player to set down some ground fire in some brand new ways not offered by previous weapons and allows for some effective burn for those targets. The HRG Arc Generator is a new way to do some lane crowd control with some great electromagnetic punch in a slow-moving projectile. The 2 new DLC weapons encompass the minigun and the mine reconstructor. The minigun is all about clearing a lane and holding it tight until the rest of your team can come to bear on something that might not have been cleared away with that deep magazine. And the mine reconstructor is a more tactical play. It's all about setting those traps and holding those lockdown lanes while potentially helping your forward team members and damaging enemies. For more details on the quality of life improvements and other additions to the changelog, be sure to check out the forums for more information. For fans of all things aquatic, it's official. Maneater, the million-selling Shark PG as it were, is coming to next-gen consoles, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X, with new graphical enhancements featuring 4K video, HDR, and ray tracing features. For owners of current physical and digital copies of Maneater, if you upgrade to the next generation, you get this upgrade for free. And something else we want to mention. We know that some of our players out there in Maneater have experienced some problems. And yes, we are working towards fixing them. We've had some problems being able to identify them as quickly as we would like, and we know definitely not as quickly as you would have liked. But we think we've got a couple leads and we're working on getting a fix out shortly. We believe we'll have this fix out sometime in the next few weeks, or if those fixes don't work as quickly as we would hope, by the time updates are out for the next generation platforms. For those looking to pick up Maneater on the Nintendo Switch, sadly, we have decided to delay that release into the first half of 2021. But we look forward to you joining us in the waters of Maneater upon its release. Moving into the jungles of Vietnam, we'd like to announce that the final update for Rising Storm 2 Vietnam is coming, and this will bring some great quality of life fixes that we know many of you have been waiting on. Chief among them, de-ranking servers that would happen randomly on map change. A fix for this has been in test for a while now, and we're happy to announce that it's going to be out to the public in the coming days. Along with this update, we're also looking at getting some of your favorite mods added to the whitelist so you can play them all with the ranking that we know you want them to have. Grunt should also expect a backend change that will switch the game's backend over to Epic Online Services, similar to what we did to Killing Floor 2 earlier this year. Overall, players shouldn't really see a difference, but it'll allow for cross-play between different PC platforms if we release Vietnam to those platforms in the future. And in the world that Tripwire presents, we've got Espire 1 and Chivalry 2 to talk about. Starting with Espire 1, we don't have a lot to say yet today, but we want agents to know that more is coming, and we expect details to start sneaking your way soon. Last, but certainly not least, we wanted to update prospective knights about Chivalry 2. Currently, Torn Banner is wrapping up what they call the alpha stage, with several technical alpha tests over the weeks and months ahead. All the core systems should be in play. That includes gameplay and technical, and what they're doing now is proving them all out under load, because those systems need to support the game through the alpha, the beta, launch, and beyond. One last part of our TICR video today is our question and answer segment. We asked you, the community, to submit some answers to us in the preceding weeks, and we've been gathering up those answers, sourcing out how we're going to respond to them, and today, we're going to reply. Helping me out, we have Alan Wilson, Chief Britishman, Male Voice Number 2, and Vice President of Tripwire Interactive, as well as David Amata, who is one of our product leads here at Tripwire. But let's start off with the questions for Alan Wilson. Hey, Alan, I got a couple questions for you. A lot of them are Vietnam related, and you would know a thing or two about that because you were our project lead on the Vietnam project, were you not?
I was indeed. I still technically am.
Okay, then let's just get right into this. So our first question comes from community member UTech, and I apologize if I butcher this name or other names in advance. It's not always easy to see how some of these names should be read. His question is, how influential was he to the bleeding icon design that's used in Rise and Storm 2? And I want to open that up a little bit and ask, how influential was the community as a whole to some of the HUD design and the audio cues that went into that project? Because we actually switched things up quite a bit from the original Red Orchestra 2 design.
Yeah, you're asking me to dig into the memory there. This is, what is it, over 3 years ago now. Yeah, I mean, as you gathered, I mean, when we were doing the development in the first place, I mean, we were gently polling the community until we got up towards the the beta, because we ran, I've forgotten how many actual beta sessions, 3, 4, something like that, maybe more. I honestly can't remember. But the whole point of doing that was that we wanted to go through that beta process where we could, take some of the ideas, act on them, throw them out there, and then actually do surveys and so on. So we were getting, not just your view or your view or your view, but a good view across the whole community. And again, I can't remember the exact numbers. We were getting sort of 15, 20,000 responses to each survey, which is, it's a huge number. So yeah, it did make a big difference. We got to try things out. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, look, I'm trying to remember the details now, and it's going back, but when a lot of the point there was that we could actually try out, different HUD icons, different scales, all this sort of thing, and even going back to the old, the old doll cutout and things like that. Because one of the desires that had been expressed by a lot of the community was to get, can we get the clutter off the HUD? I mean, let's face facts, the old HUD goes all the way back to R02 in 2011, which we started designing that in about 12, 13 years ago now. So it was looking to really update that. So we were, it genuinely made a lot of difference. We went out looking for people's opinion, and it did make a big difference. We were trying very hard to act on the community's, the community's feedback, and people like UTech, as you say. Yep. I can never pronounce people's. That's
why I apologized in advance.
Yeah, exactly. And we were, as has been said, we were looking to think about how small can we take some of the stuff? Which stuff can we take off? Which stuff do we give you? One of the things we ended up doing was giving people the option to remove particular elements and things like this, so that they could customize the HUD more.
Yeah, and along that front, I seem to recall that we actually had a big conversation early on about, hey, what could we move into audio cues? Even if we left it on the HUD in some way, how could we make sure that the player was at least aware that they should be looking for it if it was minimized or hidden somewhere?
Yeah, there was things like, I'm just trying to dredge back in my memory now, there was things like, when you're taking objectives and things like that, we wanted to make sure that, look, if you clear down your HUD and get all the stuff off there that you really want to, there's still cues that we want players to get. Like, you just lost that objective over there. You need a cue that says something's happening, because you don't want people having sort of cleared their HUD down, then having, losing the information if there's two objectives open, but losing the information without going to the map, and it was all a balance. So what we were doing, as you say, you're quite right. I mean, your memory's better than mine. Is to switch out. Okay, if you want to take off this piece and this piece of the HUD, what do we need to provide an audio cue with to the player for, so that you can actually, even if you don't want to see this little thing here, here's the flashing objective icon or whatever it is, but you still want a cue that at least alerts you to go look for some information, because that was the key thing. Was we didn't want people to get in the scenario that you've cut the HUD down to the bare minimum, but now you're actually missing important information. So it's partly about how do we, and you're right, audio cues are a good way of doing it. How do we provide you with at least the information that you do really need? So that was kind of the rationale lurking there.
And thank you. I think that really sums up all the thought that went into it. And to go back to UTech's original question a little bit to wrap it up, some of the design that he and others put forward on the forums, like he specifically had a lengthy post like, hey, what if we change the design to this? And that's the sort of information that was brought back in and was very influential to how those designs evolved. From things like programmer art, which tends to be giant flashing letters on the screen that are pink to make sure you see them, which I know at least one programmer who worked on the project was a big fan of.
We've seen some joyous programmer art over the years, but yeah, I mean, but that's the point. I mean, it was, a lot of this started off a year or two, potentially a year or two before the game was released, even more in some cases probably, and a lot of it was that. We were taking that feedback. Some of it was, I wish this was better, or I wish that there wasn't so much clutter, or there was, where people come up with, we probably had mods on the old RO2 and Rising Storm, and you kind of look at that and go, why didn't we think of that? Thank you to the community for the ideas. But a lot of it was, the key for us was to try those things out ourselves, see if, look for the pros and cons. If it gave you a big problem, as you say, you're making the point about taking stuff off the HUD, bring audio cues in, but also that thing that we always have to be really careful of is where some piece of the community has this great idea, we still need to try it on the wider community, and that's always it's a hellish balancing act, because just because this particular thing is really great for you three guys, it's still got to work for everybody else, or we've got to find ways to give people what they need, and that's why we run that extensive beta campaign, or even beta for the Americans.
I won't go into your spelling and how incorrect you are, but thank you for that verbose answer. So let's move on to our next question, see if we can even get another quite complete answer from Private Snowball. This one, I don't think I'm going to butcher the name. Private Snowball seems fairly easy, but I'm sure he'll come back later and let us know how I've ruined it. And it's a little bit about the future of Rising Storm 2. So previously, as part of this ticker, we've announced, hey, the final quality of life update's coming. We're addressing that big issue where servers will go unranked during map change, which we know our players aren't a fan of, especially the admins. And as part of that, we're looking to also make sure that some of those top mods that you previously talked about are whitelisted so they can be ranked, so players can experience them and still have all their stats and gather them. But as I said, this is the final quality of life update for Vietnam, and Snowball wants to know if Rising Storm 2's popularity picked back up if the game was released on a new platform. Would that warrant continued support or something else in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's this perennial horrible thing that when you make a transition from being a mod team to being a company that has to pay the bills and all that stuff, you get to the boring bit that everything has to pay its way. And when we're looking at the continued support on a game like Vietnam, how much is it earning? How much is the DLC earning, and all the rest of that? Because that, all things like the DLC all contribute towards what we can throw back in the way of support. And if the numbers, once the numbers drop below a certain point, it starts to get really hard to maintain a complete team. And then you get into this, this situation we've kind of been in really. For was it the last year or so, where it's, you can have a bit of a coder and a bit of an animator, and you can't have bits of people realistically. It's not like people are working part-time or anything, and you get into this juggling act. And this is why now with the EGS has provided us with a bit of impetus and a team handy for a period of time where we can pick off some of the quality of life issues, and we're actually looking at another loop around this, so not just this upcoming one, but at least one more. But I mean, to the basic point about if the popularity increases again, hey, I mean, let's be honest. If we throw this out on EGS and we get a ton of players, and dare I say it, people are still buying DLC and things like that, then the economics changes again and gets to the point where actually maybe we can afford to throw in a little bit more. It's one of those sad realities of life that it comes down to some of the economics. We would like At the moment, I'm planning on this upcoming update, which should have some some fixes in, some quality of life issues, and probably, well, almost certainly one more, possibly two more rounds, where we'll pick up. We're actually sweeping around for some additional content, if we can actually manage to make that happen. Plus, some more quality of life issues, if we can just at least get that done, which basically means, hey, I have the attention of a coder for a little bit. Let's keep that. But hey, if you can persuade all your friends on EGS to jump in, buy a ton of DLC, that will genuinely make a difference. We shall see how that plays out over the next weeks and months.
And like from the flip side of that perspective, even if there isn't a new major surge of popularity, but it does catch some people's attention and continues to, let's say, sustain itself at its current rate. That doesn't mean nothing. That helps build an audience for the next Red Orchestra game, the next Rising Storm game in the future, does it not?
Yeah. Oh, always. I mean, it's always been important to us to try and maintain that, player base, and it's really tricky. But if we bring more people into the game, as long as the old hands don't spend the first few hours and days and what have you just slaughtering the poor FNGs, pouring onto the battlefield. Not that I'm planning to leap in on those, on that next weekend and murder a few people myself. But I mean, if we can, in the perfect world, this produces a whole second lease of life, for the game, allows us to actually come back again and do, maybe another year round of extra bits and pieces. As you said, the worst case, it strengthens the player base. It makes it more attractive for modders and community mappers and so on to continue doing work because there's an audience there. And we'll look at some other stunts we can pull that will just help make sure that that you have a battlefield full of cannon fodder, as well as full of good players.
All right, and I've got one more question for you, Alan, but this one kind of comes into more of your role as vice president. Once again, a little bit economically driven. This one coming from General Sir Anthony, and he kind of wants to know why, from at least the perspective of the community, Killing Floor 2 seems to have been prioritized over Rising Storm 2 in terms of updates, events, etc.
Yeah, my first answer really. It comes back. Thanks, yes, General Sir Anthony Farrar Hockley. I haven't shot you in the face for weeks. Can be arranged. It comes back to the tedious business of economics. The Killing Floor franchise. I've forgotten what the numbers are now. I mean, I think something like 20 million people have picked up that thing over its lifetime, which is an enormous number. Which means that that game, it's not so much prioritizing one over the other as Killing Floor 2 still generates enough cash day on day, week on week, month on month, from all the in-game content and bits and pieces to actually pay for a team to actually sit there and work on it full time. And once you're above that level, clearly you'll see, what are we doing now? 3 or 4 big updates a year, because the economics can actually support there being a full-time team. Whereas Vietnam, the economics don't support a full-time team, and then it comes back to Jared's probably heard some of the bickering internally where they go, oh, come on, can I have some guys? Can I give you some guys for how about 4 months, 5 months? Okay, how about 3 months?
Yeah, how about 2 weeks this week, and then we'll try and get 2 more weeks later. And
then you get into this situation. I mean, it's kind of where we've been. We've been trying to I hate to say it, we've been in business 15 years and we're still learning how do we juggle some of these things. And it doesn't get any easier. You just find, you try different ways. And this is why you've seen, there's been bits going on. We've been trying to get part-time teams to work on bits of Vietnam. And frankly, it doesn't work well. It just means that, if someone doesn't get something by the time they're off back off the team, it doesn't matter if they're 70%, 80, 90% through this fix or something. That just stops. It just stalls. And it is, it's annoying and frustrating for us as well as for the players, and particularly for the players, because if we're that close to fixing this bloody D-ranking issue, which we think we've got some solutions to. May not make it for next week, but it'll. That's why there'll certainly be another quality of life fix to follow soon behind there, to make sure we clean up some of those issues. And looking at things like the whitelisting issues and stuff like that. I've got my hands on a coder. I'm not going to let him go too quickly until we fix some of those things.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Alan, that's the end of my questions for you today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I'm sure moving forward, you're probably going to be a frequent guest here, not just because of your breadth of knowledge about all things Tripwire, but because some people seem to like you in our community.
Well, it's probably because of my stellar voice acting talents.
Yeah, you have the best fake British accent, as I recall that quote, from the early Killing Floor release on Steam that I've ever heard.
I do aging bland Brit very well.
Yes, you do, Alan. Yes, you do.
I can tell you were thinking, how do I go? There's so many things you could say here, all of which would lead to me running around there and smacking you around the head.
Like, that's never happened before. Let's be perfectly honest. All right, Alan. Once again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to you joining us again in the future.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much, and thanks to everyone who's still playing Vietnam. Keep coming.
Once again, we'll see you back here at some point in the future, I am sure. Now, our second guest today is David Amata, who, as I mentioned before, might be key to our David strategy here at Tripwire Interactive. So, hey, David.
Hey, Jared. How's it going?
It's going good. Now, like Alan, I've got some questions that I think you are suitable to help me answer and get the community the answers that they want. You ready to dive right in?
Absolutely.
All right, and this is the second time I'm going to apologize for butchering somebody's name, because I have no idea how he wants this pronounced, because there are quite a few numbers involved in the spelling, so we're just going to go with Cynet. And Cynet's question is, Tripwire, are we going to see more playable characters added to Killing Floor 2 at this point in its life?
So, unfortunately, no. And to give you more context on that, this is mainly due to the high costs of writing, casting, recording, and localization that a lot of our new characters are all involved with. So we really wanted to balance what we could offer within our updates in terms of new content, maps, and features to keep replayability for our seasonal updates really high. And it was really hard to factor that in while also doing a new character. But with that, what we'd like to also do is continue doing new outfit bundles. So it'll give you still a lot of good customization for your existing characters.
Even if you and your friend are acting as the same character, you can look very distinct and unique moving ahead.
Absolutely. And you can see that in a lot of our trailers, the level of customization you can get from like the Space Pirate outfit to the new Reaper bundle we're introducing for the Halloween update. And we think that's going to give you a lot of freedom to customize the characters how you want to. But we recognize there's a lot of value with the new characters, new dialogue. And I know Gary Busey is a favorite among not only ourselves, but also the community.
All right. Well, I've got two more questions from you, both from the same fan here, Patros, and he's kind of got a bit of a doozy to start off with. And David, once again, you are the right man for this question. How does the dev cycle work for Killing Floor at this point?
All right. So that's a short question that has a long answer.
So, it just works. End question.
So
all right,
let's get into it. So each of the updates for contents and features really all start at design and concept level, where we come up with the proposals that fit the overall theme and gameplay that we want to achieve with our seasonal updates. Once that all gets settled, development starts in the early phase of the blockout, where we try to stub in aspects for the content and testing to see what does and doesn't work before we lock things into full production and creation, where it's a lot harder to iterate and change on. Once all of that blockout information is approved, we move to production, which involves generating all of the final assets from models, textures, effects, functionality, rigging, and animation. And once all of those are integrated, we can go into a very heavy playtesting phase and bug fixing period, in which we really try to suss out, does this feel how we want it to? Does it balance within the existing weapon meta? Is it as polished as possible that we want to achieve? And what we really rely on is getting that feedback within our beta cycle. So once we get it into a spot that we're particularly happy with, we really want to get the community feedback within our beta updates. And we usually do 2 rounds of those per update. And with that, we try to incorporate all of the feedback in and make sure that's included within our second pass, which is more of a validation to make sure we're good to go for final release.
So kind of using a real world example based on what you just shared with everybody, the fall update's just shipped. It's in players' hands. They're enjoying, the creepies and the crawlies that are coming out of portals in strange places in London, in train stations that have seen better days. But the team's already working towards the winter update. In fact, they have for some time, at least. The concept phase started weeks, if not months ago. The blockout phases of that content have been underway, and they've been getting internal passes inside the studio as they gear up to finalize them and get them ready for their beta, which will happen at some point later.
Yeah, absolutely. In total, a typical update cycle lasts anywhere from 15 weeks to start to finish. And a lot of that aspects are very heavily staggered within the schedule. So some items like maps take considerably more scope. So those could be started those could be started as far back as 2 updates back, whereas weapons might start within that 15-week cycle. And a lot of this is all happening in parity within the schedule. So it's really incumbent on our production team to really focus in and figure out how all of those things line up towards final release. So there's a lot of work and planning that goes into all of that.
So you're saying production are the magic makers there who are trying to figure out the balancing act of when things are being touched on by what departments and how it's all going to make it to that target date at the end of the map when it goes out into players' hands.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a sheep herder where you've got 1,000 different sheep running all in one direction, but you all need to get them into the corral at the same time. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of tangent chasing, trying to get all those things to line up correctly with each other.
I mean, I've seen it over the years working here. Obviously, you've seen it. It's something that, the fans don't really see in the day-to-day. Games just, maybe they've seen them in a beta stage. Some may have seen them in an alpha stage. But for many fans, it's just something like it gets into their hands, they press start, and off they go. All right. And the second question here from our same user, Patros. Are you thinking about more modes to add to the weeklies that we have in Killing Floor 2? They've personally seen many cool ideas. I'll add on top of that. I know I've seen some cool ideas, and I've seen some that the public hasn't seen. So, David?
So we definitely hear you, and we definitely want to do more weeklies. So I can't really promise at this stage what the exact details will be for next year, but that's something we're heavily looking at for next year's updates. And we definitely see some of the suggestions that you're advocating. We got a lot of cool ideas on our end, but we'll be looking to inject a lot of new gameplay variations into our existing survival formula.
Thank you, David. And once again, I want to thank you for spending some of your valuable time helping me answer our community questions. And to our fans out there, if you have some burning questions that you want to have answered, please be sure to keep an eye on the official forums where we put out the call this time. We're going to do it again as we start working our way towards the next TICR video. And look at the guidelines, look at the types of questions we want to help you get answered, and go ahead and get those submitted when the call comes out there. David, once again, thank you for your time. I'm glad you could join us. And do you have any last words you want to say to the community?
Well, as always, that we end all of our messages. See you all on the killing floor.
No, I hate it. We're done. You're fired, David. No more David time for you. All right. Thank you once again, David.
All right. Thanks, Jared. It's been a pleasure as always.
And once again, everyone out there, we look forward to you joining us for the next TICR update. And that's a good look at everything that's happening in the world of Tripwire. Now, this video is probably a little bit lengthy because we touched on a little bit of every project. Moving ahead, that's going to be less likely as we're only going to go over those things that have just recently happened between the last video and that one, and maybe with a couple new exciting bits of information to add on. So we look forward to you joining us. Goodbye.